Hello, this is week 7. So, week 7 is devoted to phase 2 of the inquiry project. You may not be at the phase 2 phase yet. Trust me, I understand. Some go a little faster than others. Take your time, work your way through it, but this is where I teach about it. So, you're going to read Hellman Katz, chapters 3 and 4. You're going to continue your project work with children, and you're going to continue your working in your project planning journal. This week, you're going to turn in discussion board number 3. Okay, so a few things about phase 2. Obviously, the chapters tell you all about it, but I just want to add that this is the opportunity where children conduct hands-on inquiry and find answers to the questions that they posed during phase 1. This is also where you include a field trip or visiting expert. For instance, in the movie that you watched earlier, I think it was during phase 1, the children took a field trip to the firehouse, and then they worked on a fire engine project. So you don't necessarily have an opportunity to do that, even though some children do. I've had some wonderful projects where children did an inquiry project about something that had to do with their school, and so they got to take a field trip to wherever it is they did that. Anyway, okay. So if you can't do a field trip, you need to have a visiting expert to come in and answer the children's questions about the topic, at least some of them. Not all questions will be able to be answered by them, but they'll do the rest of the inquiry hands-on to get their answers. So to begin with, you will revisit the children's questions web in order to help you plan investigative activities and materials. This is a great time to contact the parents and see if they can send in anything. Sometimes a parent or another family member can be the visiting expert, because families have great expertise areas that you may not even be aware of. Okay. And lastly, you're going to have to think about what skills the children may need to learn before they even undertake the inquiry part of this project. For instance, in the firehouse video, you'll notice that the teacher had to teach them how to tally before they got to the firehouse, because in the end, they wanted to tally how many wheels there were and how many ladders there were and so on and so forth. So you'll have to decide if you need to do any teaching before this even begins. And then when you think about the investigative experiences that you're going to plan for the children and how you're going to document them in photographs and then label them, there's some language here for you to consider. These are science processes, and you definitely want to use science processes to come up with answers to their questions. And these processes are very good. Observation, hypothesizing, questioning, experimenting, measuring, counting, comparing, sorting, experimenting, seriating, problem solving, and constructing. So just something for you to think about. The following link takes you to an example of what phase 2 looks like in the classroom. And this is just a great example. Items for children to investigate. There are 2 items that you may not use. One of them is Play-Doh, and another one is worksheets. Neither Play-Doh nor worksheets are investigative materials. Cooking activities are also not an investigation. Okay, we've said it, there it is. Once children are engaged in their investigations, be sure to take plenty of pictures to document what they did. And when you add these pictures to the documentation panel, you will need a label added to each picture that indicates what science processes were used and what content area learning was taking place. You've got the science processes right here up top. And please stay away from phrases such as, they had a lot of fun, it was just so great, it was a wonderful experience. I want to know what science processes you're using. I'm sure they had a lot of fun doing it. During and immediately following the investigations, children will need to represent what it was they learned. You're not going to give them a test, but they can represent their learning in different ways. Some of the methods that you can use might be play structures. You might have them make something out of clay. They can write. They can do sketches. They can make constructions. The chapters will give you a great deal of suggestions in which ways you can go in order for children to represent what it is they have learned. And then you can just some more examples here. Finally, you're going to write your narrative summary for phase 2 that includes a clear explanation with specific examples of children's investigations, discoveries, inquiry tools, and be sure to include a highly descriptive account of children's behavior, technology that was used, and dispositions that were fostered. This documentation panel shows you the placement for phase 2 items. These are the photos. The blue is the labels with the science processes that describes the content learning taking place. Here you can have pictures of children's representations, or what I've seen here are pockets that you can stick things in that children have made. Now, obviously, if they did clay work or they created structures, you can't include that on a panel, but you'll have to put a photo of that. And then down here, you will have your one-page, single-spaced narrative summary. If you have any questions at all, please let me know, and I will be happy to set up a Zoom so we can get them all answered. Have a great week.